This is the foundation. Stories from people who build things, products, services, businesses, how they started, what they're doing now, and where they're going.
Welcome, Robert, from CelBlox. It's a Monday in Wisconsin as well as San Diego, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on your show.
Good, good. Tell me the foundation of CelBlox, where you came from and where you're going to and what you're doing today.
Yeah, well, CelBlox was founded in 2004. At that time, I was a licensed general contractor, and I actually became CelBlox's largest customer, purchasing the insulated concrete forms and other climate resilient building materials from them. And then about 6 years ago, I got some investors and then purchased the factory for ourselves. And so I really believe in the products that we make because like I said, I was our biggest customer until we took over the factory.
Congratulations. Now, you mentioned climate resistant building products. Why don't you go ahead and explain that a little bit more? Then it sounds self-defined, but I'd like to hear your perspective.
Yeah, so climate resilient building products. Yeah, so CelBlox insulated.
Climate resilient, yes.
Climate resilient, yeah. So insulated concrete forms are basically the best way to build a wall. You know, if you want houses that are fireproof, waterproof, hurricane-proof, termite-proof, blast-resistant, and much more energy efficient than your standard structures. And insulated concrete forms really are the way to go. Even the insurance industry recognizes that. So if you, for example, if you build your new home out of insulated concrete forms, you receive what's called a resilient structure discount, and you get about half off on your homeowner's insurance forever. And then there's other areas like, say, Florida, for example, whereas some people can't even get insurance now unless they build a resilient structure. Same thing with areas of California where it's hard for customers to even obtain insurance unless they're building a new resilient structure, which we can help them do.
How does that work in context with existing buildings? Obviously, it's all new construction where CelBlox has to be a part of.
Yeah, so if you already own a house that's built out of sticks, you're kind of out of luck. But you know, once your house blows over or burns up, we'll be there to help you afterwards.
Very good. Well, I know that your brand promise, your mission statement under CelBlox says performance wall systems. So it sounds like the systems are more than just the blocks. Go ahead and give us a little insight on all the systems.
Well, the system is how the whole wall itself goes together. So our blocks are what's called an insulating concrete form. And so an ICF block isn't structural. It's just a form. And so what you're going to do is you're going to stack up your entire house, like all the window and door openings, all the walls, get it all square and straight and all ready to go. And then once you're ready, you fill the form with concrete. And then our form stays on. So it starts as your form, but then after the concrete's poured, it becomes an encapsulating insulation and just stays on. And then so the real hurricane resistance and fire resistance and all that comes from your walls being solid concrete.
Where do you get your foam?
We make it. We have our own production.
You make it?
Yes. We have our own production facility here in Wisconsin, and we make our products from scratch right here in Wisconsin.
I guess I've never really, I'm aware of foam as it relates in the building industry and other products. I never thought of what the secret sauce might be. Maybe you don't want to necessarily tell us, but what are the admixtures, if that's even the right word for?
Yeah, so ours is a blend of styrenes. And so what we produce is it's a closed cell, high density, expanded polystyrene. And that's where the name CelBlox comes from, because it's CelBlox.
Like cellulose?
Like cellular. Yeah. So that's to stand for the closed cell foam, the high quality closed cell foam that we manufacture.
Mm-hmm.
We also manufacture a brand of rigid insulation sheets, which you've probably seen, like 4x8. They're like, sheets of rigid foam, what we call CelDeck. And that's another product that we manufacture as well from scratch.
Wow. That's good. It's all done right there in Wisconsin. Tell me, what sort of industry upheavals are you experiencing at this point?
Insulating concrete forms are actually the fastest growing segment of the construction market, growing 9% year over year. We had a consultant do a market research report for us. And so last year in the United States, there was something like $847 million in ICF sales. nationwide, and then expected to grow 9% year over year for the next decade. So that's that's even with that's even with an expected market slowdown, because like I was saying, every time there's a hurricane or a fire, there might not be people buying a lot of new houses, but people are still building a lot of people still need to build resilient new structures. And so we foresee the market being pretty good for us.
What's the history of it?
So the original ICF blocks were invented by the U.S. military in the 1970s. They're actually a slightly older design though. And so, they've become really improved over the years. And so they're not really the same as they were back then, but it was originally developed by the military, and then it's been improved on over and over since then.
Now, were those military use them for quick construction projects, or what was their?
Yeah, so if you need quick, so standard concrete forms are super heavy and take a lot of labor to set up, and they're not that quick. And so using an ICF form, they could set up structures faster, easier, and also more energy efficient. And then there's like in some circles, there's a big argument about whether climate change is real and this and all that. But according to the military, like if you read, their documents and stuff, they know climate change is a fact, and they've been working on mitigating climate change risks since like the 1970s. And so barracks out at Pearl Harbor and stuff are all made out of ICF for that exact reason.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. Was that one of their first projects?
Yeah, I think that's one of the first projects they started doing were out there. And then we actually have a Wounded Warrior barracks made out of CelBlox that's out there at the base in Hawaii too, with our product.
Good. I hope you get a chance to go visit it all the time.
Yeah, I wish.
So you mentioned at the beginning of the conversation that you were in construction, new home construction, new building construction, and as the biggest user of CelBlox, you then decided to go ahead and purchase the company. So give me a little bit of an idea of what drove that decision.
Yeah, so like I said, I was just a licensed general contractor. I was building custom homes. Here in Wisconsin, when you're a contractor, you have to take continuing education classes to keep your license up to date. One of the classes I took was about insulating concrete forms, which is something I had never heard of. But then after taking the class, I thought it was the best thing I'd ever seen. And so then I switched over to building with them, and turned out there was a lot of people looking for a contractor who would build with them. And so I got really busy building just high-end custom homes, a lot of specialty stuff, like people who wanted like hurricane-proof houses. I built houses for people who are looking for like nuclear blast resistance houses, people putting underground firing ranges under their houses. Did one gigantic house where he had a whole wood shop factory under his house, and he wanted it to be all soundproof so nobody would know it was there. Just a lot of interesting projects using ICF. And then I'd used several different brands.
I can understand the soundproofing aspect of it and everything. So it's the strength of the product really helps you in high wind situations.
Yes.
Too?
Yes. So we're Miami-Dade certified. Category 5 hurricanes. Our walls can withstand 250 mile an hour winds without a problem. Yeah. Can also withstand impacts of flying debris at over 200 miles an hour. If you look on our YouTube channel, you see the testing where they had like a cannon, and were firing a cannon at the walls, and they put like a 2x4 in a cannon and fired at the walls, and it holds up to that. It's pretty impressive stuff.
Well, in case we're under cannon fire at any time. Right?
You never know nowadays.
So what's yeah, that's right. What part of the business gets your most attention these days?
Sales. I pretty much handle all the sales. I never really considered myself a salesman before, but it turns out I'm pretty good at it. But what makes it really easy though is, I don't have to be like a used car salesman, where I have to, talk a bunch of nonsense and, trick people into buying something. All I have to do is, tell people the truth and show them how it works. It sells itself. Yeah. So I've turned out to be a pretty good salesman. That, and then I go around everywhere, so new contractor customers and things like that. I go all around doing training, installation training, and giving tips and pointers for new contractors who are getting into the ICF business. And so I fly all around the world doing that, actually. So I was just recently in Ukraine.
Wow. Recently?
Yeah, just recently. Yeah, I was just recently in Ukraine. I've been to Belize doing, doing ICF installation training in Belize, Canada. But Ukraine was definitely the most interesting so far.
Yeah, I'm glad you made it back safe and sound.
Yeah, it got pretty hairy sometimes because I wasn't anywhere near a military base. I was just in the city, but the Russians were just indiscriminately launching, missiles and drones into the city just every single night I was there. I was there about 3 weeks, and it was literally every single night.
Wow. Now, is that from a consultative standpoint?
Yes, I was there for several different reasons. One, there was a trade show, a building materials and construction trade show in Kiev. So we had a booth there. We had the U.S. Commerce Department and the Wisconsin Economic Development Council were supposed to have a trade mission that went with us and have a booth there at that show. But then they got scared and abandoned us. So we just ended up going ourselves, and we still went. And the people in Ukraine are strong. Like the trade show, there were still a lot of people there. The trade show still happened. Every once in a while the sirens would go off and everybody at the trade show had to go down in the basement. But as soon as the sirens turned off, everybody, booths were back open and everybody came back upstairs and the trade show was back on. So they're just living their lives over there.
Wow. I can't imagine the paradox of that in light of all the news that we read, but certainly people still have to live their daily life. That's for sure.
Yep. And and that's why we're over there, because it's the largest construction site on earth, because there's so many damaged houses and buildings and schools and everything. They need everything. So it's the largest construction
Well,
site.
that's a good way of putting it. Sure. Know that the clients that we work with, the heavier CMUs and pavers and roof tiles and stone, they'd like to be able to ship to larger areas, but that's a cost factor. I can imagine ICF is a little bit easier on the wallet.
It is a little, and then one of the benefits of our ICF is we have a patent on a tri-folding hinge. So a lot of our competitors, if they're shipping product, they're shipping you basically a container full of air because, their blocks are open. And so we have a patent on a tri-folding hinge, so our blocks fold flat for shipping. They're fully assembled. They just pop open when you get there. But so we can fit about 3 times as much product into a shipping container as anybody else. And so that gives us a competitive advantage when shipping.
Now, is that hinge foam, or is it extra? Is there extra components with it?
Yeah, so it's a steel. It's an engineered resin called thermaline, and then it has steel hinge pins.
Okay.
So because the 2 sides of the block, the outsides, are foam boards that are 4 feet long, 16 inches tall, and they have studs embedded in them, also made out of thermaline, and that's what the hinges are attached to. And so because there's studs in the foam, after you pour the concrete walls, you can screw drywall.
That's great.
Yeah, you can screw drywall right to the foam. On the outside, you can screw or nail siding directly to the foam. Stucco, brick, anything you want can be attached directly to the foam. No furring strips, no house wraps, no anything. You just attach directly to it.
No lath and plaster or anything?
Yep, nothing. You just right onto the foam.
Because normally if it was hollow, you'd have to be every 18 inches on center or whatever that dimension
is.
So
exactly.
It's got a solid core.
So ours has studs, and our studs are every 8 inches on center. So you have twice as many attachment points.
Okay.
And you can screw or nail or staple to any of them. And then, so anything you want can just be attached directly to the wall when you're ready to go. We have a deal with a fireproof stucco company that we distribute their product called U Stucco. And so if you were building in California on the outside, you could apply U Stucco, so the letter U dash stucco, directly to the outside of your house, and you would be completely fireproof. Your walls would be, at least.
Right. And now roofs need to be everything, defensible space all around.
Yep.
From a design standpoint, we're going to see many, many changes. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
How do high value customers find you?
Just through Google. We just spend very little on advertising. Through Google. Google is the main way people find us. Bing's a smaller one, but it's becoming more. DuckDuckGo. Then we have our YouTube channel. And we post on social media and things like that, but social media doesn't seem to generate that many leads or anything. So it's mostly people just Googling for insulated concrete forms and finding us.
And probably not end users, because they wouldn't know how to search for ICF or insulated concrete foam. So that's more the specifiers, architects, the AEC community, is that?
Yes. And so that's another thing we do too, is we have all our CAD files available for architects on our website. So if they need like Revit BIM files or DWG files or PD, like we have it all readily available, because exactly like you said, we're trying to get in front of the people who are specifying when they're drawing the plans. And so we can help them out by providing all the 3D files and everything they need from the very start.
Sure. That's always been sort of the double-edged challenge for any building products, is who really is the customer sometimes. As we know, it's anybody who specifies it, but sometimes the product is a sell-through as it relates to the architect, engineer, or contractor who says, this is what we should be building with. What are some marketing challenges you'd like to tackle this, 6 to 12 months ahead?
We're actually coming out to California in 2 months to do the big show called Green Build. We'll be there at the LA Convention Center.
That's good. And with your patented process, I mean, how aspirational is it if it's inside something and it's removed and it's expanded with your hinges? People would probably understand very quickly.
Yes, exactly. It's a lot easier that way.
So does Green Build and foam have any sort of conflict at all? Or?
So there's a difference in foam. It's like, so if you're using foam to make cups, like disposable cups and disposable plates and things like that,
or peanut packing.
Packing, yeah. Foam is pretty much the absolute worst thing you can use for disposable products because it doesn't break down in a landfill and it just sits there forever. Our foam, you actually get carbon credits when you use our foam because it counts as permanently sequestering carbon, because the foam is a hydrocarbon. And when you're using it in a building, they count that as a permanent sequestration. So you actually get carbon credits when you build your house out of it. And it's the opposite of packaging materials that never break down in a landfill. When it's a house, though, the fact that it never breaks down and doesn't biodegrade is actually a positive, because you don't want your house to biodegrade. You want your house to last forever.
So you are LEED certified.
Yep. So yeah, we are LEED certified. You get points. I'd have to pull up our paperwork, but yeah, you get several LEED points in several different categories for using CelBlox.
Right, with the CE programs that you're participating in. So what's the evolution of CelBlox look like? Are you adding to your SKUs? Are you identifying new products, or you're just in a sell mode?
Yeah, we actually just added new SKUs. That's what our new Cell Deck product is. The rigid foam board sheeting. Since we were making foam anyways, it made a lot of sense as a new product line. The most common uses for that is you would see, like, if a lot of customers are doing like radiant heated floors, like in the floors of their house, they're doing the heated floors, and so you would want to insulate underneath that concrete. And so we're manufacturing that Cell Deck sheeting to go underneath concrete. We just recently added that product a few months ago, and it's actually been taken off. It's been going very well. It's a lot easier to assemble, so it takes less labor and work to assemble, and so the profit margins on it are pretty good. So we're happy with it so far.
That's great. You've got vertical wall surfaces and now horizontal surfaces. Well, as we sort of wind down this half-hour conversation, I appreciate your time. I've got maybe 2 questions to finish up, if you don't mind. What do you hope listeners would learn after hearing your insight?
Well, I hope they, when they're considering building their next house, that they give us a call. If they're, especially the listeners that are interested in, climate resilient structures.
And as we finish, what else would you have liked me to ask you?
I'm not sure. Like I said, this is my first interview that I've ever done. So you had some very good questions. I like talking about CelBlox, so I can talk about insulated concrete forms and all day long.
You are a brand fanatic, I can tell that.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Foundation is produced by Studio Conover and edited by Brett Euler. Studio Conover is a strategic marketing design firm for manufacturers of building products. Visit studioconover.com for more information.